We had a dream many years ago to live life away from it all, to have some sheep, maybe a cow or two, with cats and dogs and goats and an occasional moon. With our love for God, we can't go wrong. Our love can only continue to grow strong. Doesn't matter the difficult roads, it's true, for we have each other and love will carry us through. We came from another time, a time when dreams were bold, another time when values took hold. You couldn't give up hope, for it was always there. Another time we fared to do.
Say hi. Hi. Wait.
We came from another time, a time when dreams were bold, another time when values took hold. You couldn't give up hope, for it was always there. Another time we fared. You couldn't give up hope, for it was always there. Another time we fared.
Put the time in the tent with me and the kids and their feed. I'm at it again. Hi, how are you? Welcome in. Hi, Karen. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Brad. I love you too, son. Hi, Jan. How are you doing? Jennifer, I thank you. You know, you can just listen to me in bed. Anyway, tonight is going to be a little different. And what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce you to Christy. And there's my grandson. Christy is my daughter-in-law. And there's Mikey, my grandson. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Anyway, I want to welcome everybody in tonight. And I'm thankful you're here, and I truly, truly, truly appreciate you. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please hit the thumbs up button and let me know you're in watching, and just make a quick little comment in the chat. So tonight, because this is growing up in another time with Lynda, Christy is going to be asking me, Lynda. I'm the guest tonight. So I thought that would be fun. And so you get to learn all about me when I was growing up as a child. Hi, Charles, how are you? Welcome in. Tonight, I'm the guest. And it's going to be a blast. Yeah. So this This was my son's idea at one time. You should have somebody ask you the questions, Mom. So I'm going to let Christy go ahead and ask, and you guys will just find out all about me. Yeah, it's cool, huh? So who's going to start?
I'm going to start, I guess.
Okay. Are you going to ask questions too, Mikey?
Yeah, we figured you spent, you were always asking everybody else what it was like for them to grow up. So we thought it would be a really good idea for everybody to kind of get to know what it was like for you to grow up. So, just kind of tell us what it was like, in your early years, like when, as far back, I guess, is when you can really start remembering, what it was like to be young and carefree and
Young and carefree. I'm always young and carefree.
those childhood years, though, those wonderful childhood years when you had no worries in the world.
No worries in the world. Well, I was born in Bishop, California. Believe it or not, I'm a California girl. And I lived there for not very long because my parents moved around a lot. And I know I've said in another life that I had lived in 66 different homes by the time I was like in my 30s, okay? So we had moved around an awful lot. It was because of my dad's job. He wasn't military, but he'd go start up. When I got into my teen years, he would go start up processing plants for potatoes. He worked for companies like Simplot and Carnation, and I don't remember the other one, Pronto Foods, and they were all potato processing plants. And he started off sewing up gunny sacks full of potatoes, and he'd work in the where they'd store the potatoes in these deep, I don't know, just had rows and rows and rows and rows of potatoes in the earth. And I mean, it was just crazy, and it'd stack real high, and then there'd be a roof or a tarp or something over the top of it, and they'd keep it cool, and they'd put all the potatoes in there. But so we would often go from one town to another so he could do that. And one of my first memories I can remember being in we were in Delano, California. We were in Delano, California, and I was only 3 years old. And I know I was only 3 because my mother was pregnant with my brother, and we're 3 years apart. So that's the earliest point I can remember. But we stayed in a hotel, one of those old motels that had, they looked like little bungalow motels, and it was in California, and there were a lot of migrant workers there, and we stayed in this one room, and as kids, I guess we slept on the floor, or I had a roll up, or one of those roll up beds. And I went outside. I can remember going outside because there was no place to play, and I'd go play on the sidewalk. And there were a whole bunch of ants all over the sidewalk. So I decided that I was going to get the hose and start spraying the ants and spraying them all, just playing with them like I was. I can't imagine my mother letting me go outside at 3 years old in California. Hotel. That just tells you it was another time, truly another time.
No, there's no way I'd be letting my kids out at 3 years old outside of a hotel to play in ants or play with ants.
The lady that owned the place, she came out and she just screamed at me because I was using her water. I guess that's always been an issue in California. I don't know. She was probably afraid that she was going to get fined or something, but yeah, I was using her water hose to kill the ants. And she told me to get back in my room and stay in my room. And so, but I can remember also my mom giving me money, I think it was a quarter, to go to the soda pop machine and get her a Dr. Pepper. To this day, I drink Diet Dr. Pepper. They used to have the 10 to 4 on it, and it was a glass bottle. And I can remember my dad laying on the bed in a white beater, t-shirt, and my mom hot because there was no air conditioning, and she was rubbing that diet. She put it in the freezer, and she was rubbing after she took it out. She put it on her forehead, and it was always full of ice. And I can remember, hi Heather, I can remember how good they tasted. I mean, they just taste so refreshing after it was so hot. And then those are the only two memories I have. I do remember going to the
Like you said,
ocean.
your mom would give you a quarter, if that tells anybody the difference between then and now. I mean,
I don't know if
I
it was
don't
a
think
quarter,
you
it
can
may have been a dime. You know, I just don't remember what the monetary value was. I wouldn't have known that at 3. She just sent me to go get one, and I'd go get one, and I could barely reach it. I remember that, but I got it. And then I know we lived in Nevada for probably all during the time my mom was pregnant with my sister, Rhonda. And Rhonda and I are just about a year and a couple of months apart. And yeah, it probably was 10 cents, Jan. It really was. And we would sit out. I don't remember this, but I know from the stories my parents told that they would sit out on the porch. The whole neighborhood would sit out on the porch where we lived and watch the nuclear bombs being tested and watch the mushroom clouds. I mean, it was an event. They treated it like it was an event. So I could have been part of that whole group that received, but I never developed thyroid cancer, and I'm so grateful I didn't. I do have thyroid problems, and my sister had to have her thyroid removed, and so I believe, yeah. Oh, thank you. But it caused a lot of medical problems for my sister, and I do believe it caused problems for me in the future, and I won't go into those. But anyway, but no cancer, and I'm so grateful for that. I truly am. Yeah, Karen, it was interesting. It was interesting. So
that is a really interesting thing to be able to say that.
Yeah, it really is.
Your parents, you used to sit on the back porch and watch the.
There were those Nevada people that, they could have gotten money from it. I mean, there was a big lawsuit, and they all, none of us ever went for it though. So, hi Kenny, how are you? And so I remember those two events. I do know that we lived in Mina, Nevada at one time. We lived in Bishop, California. We lived in Delano, Bakersfield, and there was someplace else in Nevada where they'd sit and watch those bombs. I don't even know how to say it. It sounds so awful to even say. Anyway, and then we would periodically move back and forth and go live in Idaho, in southern Idaho. And that's where I went to school, was southern Idaho, in Burley and Hayburn. I didn't go in Burley. I only went to Hayburn. I was in kindergarten and first grade there. and maybe second grade, because I think we moved in 63 to Washington State. And so I remember living on a farm in Rupert, Idaho. And it's just a little town outside of Burley, Idaho. And when I lived there, I remember my grandma and my mom, they bought like 500 chickens. And they were meat chickens. I didn't know the difference, at the time, but they bought like 500 chickens, and my grandma once they grew big, my grandma started harvesting them, Christy, and she took them all and she'd wring their necks. And I was so traumatized by it. And I think that's why to this day, I have a hard time processing a chicken, and dispatching chickens. I've done it, but it's not my rather.
Oh, I gotta say, we've done it with you.
Yeah, I know. And it was so traumatizing because I was 3 or 4 or something like that. I was just, I had to have been 4 because my brother was a baby. And then we had a bull at the time, and he was named Ferdinand because he is big. He was a big black Angus bull like Danny on Gillum Farms. And he was just huge. And I was scared to death of him. But he had a ring in his nose, so he looked like a cartoon to me. One of the cartoon bulls. And they had a ring in his nose, which you don't see.
A cartoon that's got a bull whose name is Ferdinand?
Yeah, I think so. And I had a calf. Her name was Daisy June. And she was so cute. She was a little Jersey calf. And she grew up and then disappeared. We all know where that. I was heartbroken because my calf was gone and I couldn't understand why. And yeah, I remember I was always a little challenging for my mom, okay, because I was very independent, and she had me doing things at such a young age that I just figured I could do all things at a young age. And so I would get a chair. There used to have this gum called Asper gum, and I don't know how many of you remember that, but Asper gum, it was flavored and it was so good. It was aspirin, but it was gum. I'd climb up in the cupboard and I'd chew that Asper gum like, oh my gosh, it was amazing. It didn't kill me because I kept chewing it all the time. And now you know why some of the boys do what they do, huh, Christy?
Yes.
And I can remember my grandma coming there and my mom yelling at me because I was trying to comb her hair, and she told me not to. X-Lax looked like chocolate too. I can remember that too. Yeah. But there were those are my early years. I do remember we lived about 2 miles from the school. And I was in first grade. And I didn't have one of my assignments. So I just snuck out at recess and walked all the way.
And up the hill and over the hill and through the river, right?
It was 2 miles. 2 miles. Here I am. What, 6? So that's terrifying. Think about that. That's terrifying. Yeah. 2 miles.
It was
And
it was a different time.
yeah, it was another time. It really
Yeah.
was another time. But still, I had to cross a busy main road thing, you know. I think back about that and I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah. And my Aunt Marie, my mother's sister, she was like the first woman pilot in Cassia County. And she had her own plane and she was single, but she was friends. She worked for an attorney and she was friends with, um, through this attorney and through her husband, they knew the Kennedys. And so she ended up becoming friends with Ted Kennedy's part of the family. And, but she would put us in the plane and let us fly that plane. It was so fun. Rhonda, my sister, would be standing up in the back of the airplane, and she'd let me fly and let me drive, you know, and she'd let us do these nose dives and she'd pull it. It was just so much fun. I had so much fun, but now I'd be scared to death to do it. She'd turn us all around. It was so neat. And she's passed away now, but there's lots of times that he'd show up at their house, so just unannounced, Ted Kennedy. So that was kind of interesting. We used to go to her house every summer and to my grandma's house when we finally moved to Washington State. And we moved there in 1963. But then we would go back to stay with my aunt in Burley, or we'd go to Nessa, Oregon, where my grandmother lived. And we'd spend part of it in both places. And Mom had put us on a train. And we'd ride a train by ourselves, Rhonda and I, down to my aunt's or my grandma's, whichever, because the train used to run right down to their towns. And it was so cool because we thought the train was awesome. We hated it when we'd have to ride a bus. And she put us on a bus too. Send us with a bag of chicken. That'll last you till tomorrow. No refrigeration. I just remember the days. So it was so much fun. And at my Aunt Marie's house, I know, Chris, at my Aunt Marie's house, what we would do is I played a lot by myself. I never really played a lot with Rhonda or with my friends. I did a lot of playing by myself. And I would go she had these giant stacks of hay. I mean, out west, they have these huge stacks of square bale hay. And she had one of those, and because she had horses and cattle and stuff. And I used to go in and pull out a bale and keep pulling out a bale until I had a tunnel into that big stack of hay. And it was so much fun. And I'd play that. That was my house. That was my, And then one day I told Rhonda to come out, and I showed her, and my cousin, I think, was there too. And we didn't have any light, but Aunt Marie had this, what was it? It was like a little tiny kerosene lamp, that you could, yeah, Chrissy, I did. I mean, it's amazing I survived because I took that lamp in there, and I had a big enough space, but I mean, it could have just been disastrous. So I'm going to say the Most High has had his hand on me all my life. And
I'm just thinking, it explains a lot, a lot.
It really does with everything I do, how
yeah, I was going to say,
turned out.
do you think that your love for being on, your little mini farm, do you feel like, I don't know if I should even call it a mini farm, Do you feel like that is something that's always been ingrained in you since a child?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think you're either, well, knowing being a former counselor and knowing psychology, I know that a lot of that is in your personality by the time you're 5. Actually, even younger for a lot of people. So it's by the time you're 5. So I think that for a lot of people, it's just always calling, because maybe they experienced it with their grandmother, maybe they experienced it with a friend or something at a very young age, and and it just kind of something that they
Because at one point you guys did live in like a city, right? Like you lived in like bigger cities, and did you not like living in bigger cities?
When I went to, no, I never liked living in the city. I always hated the city. I hated the city. I lived, because I went to University of Washington when I was working on my bachelor's degree, and I just never liked the city. I don't like the traffic. I don't like the congestion. I feel claustrophobic. I feel it creates anxiety, and you're always, I don't want to live where I'm always afraid somebody's going to bash my door in, because that's usually what happens in the city at some point or another. And I've had that happen, and so no, never, ever, ever wanted to live in the city. But I had to at times because of the situation, going to school or yeah. I mean, even
now, which one of didn't you have a grandmother who taught you how to can? Can we talk about your canning?
Was my mom.
Your love for canning.
That's my Grandma Hanson. My Grandma Hanson taught me all those skills. I mean, I loved it. She canned beets all the time. Now, I hate canning beets because it's too much work. And I can just go buy beets, and it's a lot cheaper to buy jars of pickled beets than it is to stand over and Slade and peel all those beets, I'll dehydrate them. I mean, I'll still peel them and dehydrate them. So I just don't want to can the beets. But she canned tons and tons and tons of food. And she had an old root cellar that we go down there. It was scary to go down there. It was actually the whole basement of her house was another apartment that she used for food storage. And the whole thing had food storage in it. All her canning supplies, all her hams hanging and things like that, And so, yeah, I learned how to do that at a very young age. And
Did you sell hams hanging?
Yeah, hams. They used to hang these smoked hams, to store them.
Okay.
And so she had a garden that was probably 2 acres. I'm not kidding you. And my grandmother, until she was in her like mid 70s, she took care of that garden.
So do you feel like, how big is your garden?
My garden this year is not that big.
Okay. In the past, how big is your garden?
In the past, I usually try to keep it around a quarter of an acre or an acre, somewhere around, quarter of an acre or a half acre, somewhere around there. But this year it's not. I'm just like bulk planting in my beds so that I'm just not. I'm not doing it like that. Yeah.
I think I was just trying to compare, thinking about the size of your garden to you saying about 2 acres, and she took care of it all by herself.
Yeah. All by herself.
Didn't have you guys out there helping her? Like, back then,
and help her, when we go down there, we'd go weed and stuff like that. But she get some of the neighborhood kids. There was no family that lived in the town. Well, there was. A couple of my cousins did for a while. But, you know, she'd hire somebody to come and pull weeds or something like that. But she was out there just taking care of it. She planted it every year. I mean, just crazy. And she was a lot like I am. You know, she got up very early in the morning and she just worked all day long. And she taught piano lessons, and she sewed, and she quilted, and she knitted and crocheted. And every year she sent 60 pairs of pajamas out to all of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And, you know, I mean, she was an amazing woman. And she's this tiny little frail woman that you would have never expected it. And so her and my father really were my inspiration for work. I mean, they truly were. My dad, he worked hard and long hours, and he worked his way up to a point where he was running the show. And, you know, he had a tough time, but I just remember he just worked so hard. And I also, you know, my dad was the one who taught me how to fish and hunt, and he took us hunting all the time, at least me, because I like to do those things. You know, Rhonda didn't necessarily like to, but I loved going hunting with my dad, and he'd take us pheasant hunting and duck hunting. And I remember picking pellets out of our food. It was funny, but it was good. You know, it was normal for us. And then, but he really did. He taught us all those things, and gardening too, as well. He loved to garden. My mom liked growing strawberries, but he loved gardening. You know, he loved melons and growing. He'd always have a big garden. But yeah, it was a lot of fun growing up, you know. I mean, there were things. Hi, Fallon, how are you? And I just want to stop and read a couple of comments. My son's friend, when they were teenagers, always did heavy garden work, so his grandma could continue to have a garden. Well, that's sweet. That's awesome. Dad always watched Westerns. My dad always watched Westerns too. And if you haven't been able to tell, you know, I tend to like country Western music a lot more than I ever thought I would. And yeah, that's kind of, I said, funny thing is I've been in this kick of just letting old Westerns play lately. So yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so we moved to Washington in 1963. And I had a cousin there. My dad's brother lived in Moses Lake. And they moved up there primarily because the sugar factory had blown up. And my uncle was in the silo that blew, my dad's brother. And it threw him, like, I think they said 10 acres or something. I mean, it just threw him. Because he was way up the top when it ignited and it blew up. And so it threw him so far, and he was burned on 90% of his body. And so my dad went there to help, wanted to help take care of him because he was in such bad shape. Now, he did recover, and believe it or not, after years and years and years of them working with him, you could barely see any scars on his face and stuff. But hi, Mikey. It was pretty terrifying. But so I had some cousins there when we moved there, so I have some friends, you know. But and then I went to school most of my elementary school, I went there. But then we had to move to Prosser, Washington, and I went to school there. And my most favorite gift I ever got for Christmas was a reel-to-reel tape recorder that I could sneak and tape record my parents saying things or my mom saying things. So I could go and tell my dad, Mom said this. Because I always stuck up for my dad. I was a child, I'll tell you. And
Did it take did it have a tape, or did it have what is it, that thing called an 8
no,
drive?
it had the reel tapes. They were reels, like.
Oh, one of the big ones with the reels on them?
But that wasn't, it was little, and it was the first year they came out. It was compact, and it was so cool because then everybody could have a reel to reel. So it was really awesome. Yeah, I had a blast with it, but I hated living there because
Didn't you think have like a plug in the side of it with a microphone that you would plug into the big thing?
Yeah, it was really neat. And I just spy on everybody all the time and, record them.
Okay, Brad.
And then I hated living there. I lived there for like 1 year. And then we had to move to Richland, Washington. And I hated living there. And that's when my little sister was born. Right after we moved back, my mom had gotten pregnant and had my little sister, Johnny. And which is a whole other story. I'm not going to go into it. But I always looked so forward to my grandma coming. My grandma would come and she'd spend a week with us or stay with us. I mean, it was just nice. I loved my grandma. And what?
Oh, I gotta say sorry, Mikey walked through.
And I'll tell you, at Christmas time at my grandma's, it was the most wonderful time because we never got really big presents, but grandma always made us a nightgown or a pair of pajamas, something like that. And I remember one year, my cousin, he'd been really bad while we were there, picking on all the girls all the time. And sure enough, we'd always get an orange, and at my grandma's, we'd always get an orange in our stocking, and we'd always get the orange slices, those orange slice candies that are like gummies or something, those kind of orange slices.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
And they just be in your stocking, so they'd have hair on it and everything. They get lint and fuzz on them. But that year he woke up and they kept telling him, you're going to get coal in your stocking. You're going to get coal in your stocking. And sure enough, they gave him coal. And I was just so shocked that my grandparents would do that. But we'd all lay down we'd all be sleeping on the floor in the dining room and the living room because she didn't have enough room for everybody, and it was crowded and you couldn't even hardly walk through the house, but it was fun. It was fun. And they always said morning prayers and evening prayers, so you didn't get to do anything until there was morning prayer, and you didn't get to go to bed until evening prayer. And yeah, you never left their house without a prayer. So there were some good praying people. Yeah, I know, Christy, the orange slices covered in sugar.
So when you guys would do when you guys were younger and your grandmother or whatever for Christmas and stuff, was it like you guys just all laid out on the floor together, all the cousins just
Yep.
all laid out there in the living room all together.
Yep. Because we didn't have anywhere, just you had a blanket and a pillow. Here's your blanket and your pillow. And that was it. Some of us didn't even get a pillow. So all the adults got the beds. It was hilarious. Yeah. And
So nothing like we do now where we, make the kids all these nice little beds and blow up mattresses and.
Oh, no, because it was another time. I mean, children, they usually got their food first, and then they were to leave the area of the adults. And the adults would sit and talk, and the kids would be eating somewhere else and playing with their, eating their food and doing their thing. And I mean, it was just a matter of respect. That was common in almost every household that I knew. So that's just how it was. And then my grandma was also the one that taught me how to make bread and bake and do all the cooking. And, she just taught me so much. And I'm so grateful for her. Her and my dad, they really did teach me a lot. And then we lived we moved back to Moses Lake after Richland. And I'd go to school, but I was not a really good student. I mean, I just would get so bored and I couldn't stand it. And so I skipped school a lot. Even in middle school. I mean, I was in 6th grade. Me and my girlfriends used to sneak out and go to their house, one of their houses. My dad's not home. My mom's not home. We'd go to one of their houses. It was right around the school. But I was skipping school at a very early age. I was bad. I was bad. I wasn't a bad kid. I just was so headstrong, I guess.
And of course, back then it was not like anybody was calling your parents to let them know that you weren't in school.
No, because they probably tried, but they can, you didn't have cell phones, so they would only call the house, and most people didn't even have an answering machine. I didn't even know. I don't even think they existed then. I don't know. And
Do you remember when you guys got your first answering machine? How old you would have been?
I think I got the first answering machine in my 20s.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, in my 20s. It may have been later than that. I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't remember exactly when I wonder we survived. Yeah, it is, Christy. There really is a wonder we survived. Does anyone remember when answering machines came out? Because I don't. I just know that I probably didn't have one until mid-20s or so. Yeah.
And there wouldn't have been any caller ID. That's what I'm saying. It's not like anybody would have known if you weren't at school. There was nothing. There was no way of wrapping you out. Like, unfortunately, that is one thing I'll say the kids don't have the luxury of nowadays.
Yeah.
We know.
But
so would you go back to school and catch the bus home? So you wouldn't get caught?
Did you guys walk? We didn't have a bus.
So you guys walked up the hill and down the river and through the path and
to go to school. Yeah, we walked to school, and it wasn't bad. Now we did get a bus when we go to high school because the high school was clear out by the the interstate, and some of the kids could ride the bus to junior high, but we usually walked. I mean, it was about 2 miles to the junior high, which wasn't bad. I mean, that was normal. I mean, that was just normal. And yeah, it was. I think high school and junior high, particularly junior high was a lot of fun for me in some regards, because, and high school, because we just had so many places to go when we skipped school.
School.
We used to go out to the sand dunes. Moses Lake is so cool because it's a desert town, and there's all these sand dunes on the outside of it, and I mean, big sand dunes that people go riding UTVs all the time down, 4x4s and stuff up and down. We used to go out there and just have a blast and skip school and go there. And they have all these potholes, which are tiny little lakes all around the big lake. And so we take off and go swimming or go fishing or go. It was hard not to. And we'd go ice fishing when the lake would freeze. And I'll never forget. Lee and I used to drive. Brad's dad used to drive his Pinto onto the lake during the winter time, ice skate and fish, and as his car is sitting there on the lake. And we were kids. I mean, we were, 16, 17 years old. We didn't know how much that car weighed and how deep the ice was on that and if it was supposed to hold it or not. I mean, I think about some of the things we did, and it just amazes me that we survived. Yeah. I was married too when I had my first answering machine. Yeah, I know it was but yeah, I would go camping out there, when it'd be 20 below zero and sleep in the car.
I was going to say Moses Lake, for those who don't know, explain Moses Lake a little bit, especially since, you did grow up there a lot, because it's
Moses Lake is
summer, really hot and dry, and then it does get really
very
cold.
hot and dry in the summer and really cold and snowy and in the wintertime because it's in the desert. And it sits between Seattle and Spokane, Washington, and there's mountains on both sides. The rainforest on the one side, and then the other Idaho mountains on the other side. And so it's this desert valley in there, and I don't know if you've ever heard about the Grand Coulee Dam, but they built this big dam for the Columbia River, and I guess it's the Columbia that goes into it. I can't imagine what other river would go into it. But anyway, and hi Gail, how are you? But there was no irrigation for a long, long time until they built that dam, and then they started irrigating the desert. And they call it the oasis in the desert because they brought in all these this irrigation technique where all the farmers drill several wells, and they hook these circles to them, these circle irrigation systems that water their crops. And so, but back in the day when I was young, the irrigation wasn't as great. And so we'd have these terrible, terrible dust storms and sandstorms and literally get to 118 during the summer. That wasn't uncommon at all. And then the winters would get 20, 30 below and tons and tons of snow. And there's just tons of tumbleweeds, and they blow and they cover your fences and get in the telephone poles and stuff. So when I was growing up, that's more how it was. But now the irrigation has gotten so great, and there's all the farms have water, and it's not a dusty area or anything. They don't have as many of those sandstorms, and they don't have all the things that, even the climate has changed because of that. And so Yeah, they have it easy now in Moses Lake as opposed to when we went to school. We used to get snow drifts that came off the roof, and you'd have to dig your way out of your house. So, I mean, it's just different times, another time. But it's changed a lot because of the irrigation and the environment. It just changed. Yeah. But it's still pretty dry and barren there. I mean, coming from Kentucky and going to visit my son, who I have a son that lives out there, it's definitely an eye-opening experience because I've lived out here for so many years, most of my adult life, and then going back is like, oh wow, this dry, arid heat. And not that I don't mind the arid heat, but I would hate the winters there. I could not tolerate the winters there. So I could never live there again, ever.
I thought it was pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's different. It's pretty. But the winters, no. They're a lot longer, and you're going to be breaking ice for animals for weeks and weeks and weeks. I have no way.
So do you think that the winters there when you were, I mean, even now, do you think the winters there, because we prepare pretty heavy for our ice storms and everything, they're worse than they are here, even back then?
They're longer and they're colder and they're not worse. It's just here, we're not, I look at us and we're not supposed to have those kind of winters. So when we get one, yeah, I mean, it's just like, oh, yeah, I think their winters would take a lot of people from out here, unless you live up north, some getting used to. You're going to drive on snow for weeks. You're never going to do that here. So, yeah. And they don't salt their roads in Washington. They use gravel, and you drive around with chains or studded snow tires. That's just how it is.
Did you guys ever have any farm animals when you lived in Moses Lake? Were you ever on any farms there too?
In Moses Lake, we didn't. See, I left Moses Lake when I was 16, almost 17. I left Moses Lake. So, yeah. Yeah. But I lived on lived on a farm when I was pregnant with Kevin, and pregnant with Melissa, and then didn't anymore for a while until we lived in Burley again when the kids were little. We lived on a farm in Burley. Yeah.
Now, when you became an adult, there's some significant things that happen, right? Because I know Jason kind of briefly said something about it, but you got to see Mount St. Helens go.
Oh yeah,
right?
Mount St. Helens erupted while we lived in Spokane, Washington, and that was pretty incredible. I mean, it really was. In the middle of the day, first they announced on the radio on television that the mountain had erupted, and hi, they announced that the mountain had erupted, and then it was about, I don't know, 11 o'clock when they announced it. I'm not sure on the time wise, but this dark cloud, you could see this dark cloud just rolling in. And when it finally got to Spokane, you could see it wasn't just solid dark cloud. What it was is these balls of ash. And it was like balls. And they roll in, and they were just full of electrical charges and little lightning striking, you know, like when you shock yourself or something, just little electrical charges. And the whole sky, I mean, it went from daylight to being, have you ever been in a cave when you can't see anything in front of you? It's just that black. That's how it was with the ash. It blocked out every bit of light. It blocked out all the street lights and the house lights. And then you couldn't breathe. You weren't even supposed to go outside because of the ash getting in your lungs, and it was going to cause some glass effect in your lungs or something, you know. And it didn't start to clear up until the next afternoon, where you could see stuff. It was still dark for quite a while, and then you could start to see stuff the next afternoon, and you could see all these, there were a lot of dead birds and dead little critters, and just, you could see all the tracks. I mean, it was really, really awful. You know, it was terrifying. And the vehicles couldn't run until they had special exhausts that came out the top of the hood of the car. A lot of the cars and tractors and different things, they just shut down because they just had too much ash. And the ash stayed around. I mean, you can still dig in the dirt over there. You can dig down and you'll see the layer of ash. And in Moses Lake, I think they got like this, and they had several roofs collapsed because it's very heavy. And businesses had roofs collapse. And then in the Spokane, it wasn't that there was that much ash. I mean, there was probably about this much ash in Spokane. And yeah, it just changed the whole year. I mean, it really did. A lot of cattle died and birds and different things like that, livestock, you know. I mean, it was just, farmers' crops were destroyed. It was kind of a nightmare for a lot of Washington State. Yeah. And it just spread. It spread clear across the world. The ash did. I mean, it just took its time. And this big old plume of ash blew up the whole side of the mountain. And we went up there, and probably as soon as they opened it up where you could go look at it, we went up there. And you could see the cars that were just melted. The metal in the cars were melted. And there were people there that, you know, that just perished because of it. So, yeah, it was pretty incredible. But, yeah, we're getting close to being done here. And so I hope you guys had fun learning about my experiences growing up in another time. And one of these days I'm going to have Chrissy on here, and really I'd love to have some of you on to do the show. So if you're interested, please send me an email. My email is on all of my videos, so you can check on my channel. Just email me and say you'd be interested, and I'd love to have you on. It'd be so much fun. And and I've got my new theme song, but I couldn't upload it here for some reason. I'm going to play my theme song to close us out with.
We want Millie to say bye.
Hi, Millie. Yes, see, Millie? Millie is Lucy Lou's and Azzy's daughter.
She's asleep,
So here we go. I'm going to play this. I just thought it was perfect for this particular series. So, wait, let me see. I don't know why it's okay. Oh, now it's playing. Okay, I'm just going to let it play for a minute and then until it gets done, and then I'll play it. Because I don't know how to do it. Okay, it's almost over so you can listen to the whole thing. I'm sorry I make you guys be my experiment. I wrote this the other night, and so I'm like really excited. I did put a video out on it. And if you haven't hit the thumbs up, please hit the thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. So here's the song.
Dust on the frame of an old photograph. Shadows linger born from the past. The clock it stopped, but the memories still climb. I find myself lost in another time. Another time when the skies were wide, when the rivers hummed and the hills were alive. Another time where the world felt kind. I search for answers in another time. Tracks on the dirt road leading nowhere fast. Echoes of laughter buried in the grass. I press my ear to the sound of that rhyme, hoping to hear songs of another time. Another time when hands held tight, when the stars would whisper through the night. Another time where love could blind. I followed the trail to another time. The wind it howls, but it brings no clue.
Oh, that's cool, Christy.
Letters unsent, stained deep with blue. I chase my thoughts through this old pantomime, trying to hold on to another time. Another time when dreams could soar, when the ocean kissed a forgotten shore. Another time where we all align. A piece of my soul lives in another time.
What? So that's my new theme song for this show. I've just got to figure out how I can get it on here. Anyway, I thought it's one of my favorites too. You know, it's really cool. I love Suno. If you haven't played with Suno, go over to Suno. It's Suno. It's AI music. And what you can do is you can write your own lyrics, and then you tell them the type of song you want. You know, like if you want country western, if you want a slow rock, if you want a rap, whatever, hard rock. And then it gives you put your lyrics in and your title, and then it gives you a choice of 2 songs. And you know, if you don't like it, delete them and put them in another one. You know, I mean, but it's so much fun, and I have played with it so much. But one important thing, I am doing a giveaway on, let me see here. I have to pull up this giveaway. I think it is May. Do you remember what day it is? It's going to be May 7th at 8 o'clock on this show. I'm going to be doing a giveaway, and there's going to be a special giveaway for my members of $100. And so I'm really excited about that, but there's going to be a giveaway for everybody. And that's one thing I wanted to tell you. I also want to make sure you go over to Simply Jan's Homestead and watch the videos about the upcoming meetup at Pomme de Terre State Park in Missouri on June. If I get this wrong, it's June 6th through the 8th, I believe. If I get this wrong, somebody correct me, please. But go over and watch those videos, and it's got all the information in that you'll need. I was going to do a video, but Jan did such a wonderful job, and I think you should just go watch hers a million times till you know it. And hope that we see you at the meetup. It's going to be hosted by Simply Jan Homestead, by myself and Gail as co-hosts from Gail Southern Living. And yeah, so I'm excited about that. And there's a lot of great collaborations coming up. There's a hot dog one hosted by Tina at Top Your Dog. I don't remember the names of these. It's hosted by Tina from Life in the Piedmont. There's one hosted by Tammy, and it's what's the one Tammy's doing? I can't remember. And then we're doing a skill building. It's a skill building. Heather, is there any way you can look that up? The one that we're doing together. Good night, Christy. Thank you so much for coming in. I hope Heather can look it up. And but there's some really neat collaborations coming up. So please check out Tammy at Mountain Grandma's Homestead. Check out Simply Jan Homestead. Check out Milk and Honey Heritage Homestead. They do healthy snacks. Yeah, healthy snacks. And what are some of the others? And be sure to check out mine. Because I'm doing that collaboration with her. It just dawned on me. Okay. Anyway, but we're going to be building stuff in the collaboration. It's going to take place in June. We're going to be building. You get to develop your building skills in this collaboration. Oh, that's okay, Lulu. Thank you for coming in. And you get to build something, anything. Building skills in June. And so I can hardly wait for that. So any of you that want to participate, even you, Christy, if you want to participate, Mike, you get to build something and make a video about it and post it and make sure you follow, whatever. If you just want to build something, it's pretty cool. So I know it's by invitation, but if somebody wants in to build something, they can build something. I don't want to build anything. But if you're interested, just let us know. Okay. What else? Oh yeah. My home apothecary is in July, and it's hosted by Tammy from Mountain Grandma. So lots and lots of collaborations. A giveaway. Be sure you go check out my video on the giveaway. And if you're interested in that, because it's going to be a good giveaway. Yeah. So, and be sure you go to the meetup if you can. But anyway, I just want to say thanks to everybody. Thanks for coming in, and I hope you all have a good night. I am so grateful you came, and Christy and Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Mikey, thank you. I'm having a blast. So I'm going to end this now, and you guys have a good night. I'm going to say goodbye. Playing.
We had a dream many years ago to live life away from it all, to have some sheep, maybe a cow or two, with cats and dogs and goats and an occasional moon. With our love for God, we can't go wrong. Our love can only continue to grow strong. Doesn't matter the difficult roads, it's true, for we have each other and love will carry us through. We came from another time, a time when dreams were bold, another time when values took hold. You couldn't give up hope, for it was always there. Another time we fared to do.
Say hi. Hi. Wait.
We came from another time, a time when dreams were bold, another time when values took hold. You couldn't give up hope, for it was always there. Another time we fared. You couldn't give up hope, for it was always there. Another time we fared.
Put the pod in the tent with me and the kids and our feed. I'm at it again.